Hey, 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 your backup plan tribe. How is everybody today? I'm just going to wait till get everybody on. Welcome to our show on a beautiful sunny day today. And I hope it's nice wherever you are. If you are new here, welcome to your Backup Plan Tribe, Talking Taboo with Tina podcast, brought to you by your Backup Plan app. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you very much. And I'm going to get out my hand. I always laugh at this because it's like this chicken or something going across the screen. Like, share, and subscribe down here I can't seem to get it to work today. There we go. Down here. Subscribe button, like button, and click on the bell. If you are a returning subscriber, welcome back. Welcome to our show. I appreciate each and every one of you. My name is Tina Ginn. I am an emergency preparedness coach, a best-selling author of In the Blink of an Eye. Yes, everything happens in the blink of an eye, and this is how fast it is. That's in the blink of an eye. That's when something occurs that is unexpected, and it's that quick. So I'm a financial expert and an app developer of your Backup Plan app, and I'm located here in beautiful Vancouver, BC. And I'd like to welcome all of our listeners from the United States and Canada. And our next biggest group is Germany, then Ireland, and then Sweden. So I'm keeping track of you guys. So you can start sharing and subscribing to our channels, both on the podcast, our apps, give some reviews, and our show. That would be much appreciated. I'd love all of your comments. Meine deutsche Freunde sind unserem Podcast willkommen. Wenn Sie Kommentare haben, können Sie gern Fragen stellen. Also danke für deine Freundschaft. Thank you so very much, my German listeners. I will practice my Irish until you guys move up the ladder a little bit, and I will have some Irish accents for you guys. I promise. And Swedish, well, I need a little bit of work on that part. So I hopefully will get some assistance with that very soon. Let me tell you about some of the other fun things that we do on our podcast. We focus on raw and real conversations with our listeners and their journey from a life-changing event or many life-changing events in their life to where they are brought to today. Your Backup Plan app puts your life all in one place, everything that's up in your head in case of any unpredictable circumstance while taking that painful aftermath out of a tragedy. What does that mean? It means that, for example, a wildfire that you have a 5-minute evacuation, what would you have at hand that you can take? Because you are truly blessed if you're given 5-minute notification for anything, any tragedy that occurs. You have to thank everybody for allowing you to have those few minutes to grab your stuff. Because in our Florida condo collapse that was at Surfside this past few weeks, they weren't given any time to take anything. They were lucky to get their shoes on and run and be safe, because that's what happens. A car accident, you don't get time. Well, just a minute, let me prepare for that. No, it doesn't happen that way. So prepare for the unexpected, because you don't know what tomorrow or today will bring. So that's what we help you with. It won't happen to me. It doesn't happen around here because it does. You're not Superman, and things don't always show their light until it actually occurs. So be safe out there. Be better prepared. Check out our app if you haven't already done so, because it can help you be better prepared for the unexpected. And we do have a new program coming out very soon called the Emerging Blueprint, which will help you get better prepared if you're not certain on how to do that. So thanks everybody for coming out today. Let's get this party started. You have come here. If you see this show or watch our show, you are here for a reason. And we have a very special guest today. And I am just going to bring him on. Welcome, Erik. There he is. Welcome, Erik Allen, to our show today.
Thank you so much for having me on. This is such an honor. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome. It's awesome to have you on. I'm so excited to hear your story. Let me give you everybody, our listeners, a great introduction for Erik. He's only a hop, skip, and a jump away from me today. I have been to his area of Idaho and Spokane, Washington area many, many times. As I told Erik a very funny story about Spokane. And he has been married for coming up to 17 years. He has an 11 and an 8-year-old. He is an avid podcaster. He is a content creator and a voiceover. And he has a super podcast all about MMA fighters. For all of you, we have a huge, in BC, we are, I know for a fact that we have a lot of MMA fighters or people that love it, as well as wrestling. So I'm excited to hear your story about where did it all start for you, Erik, because you've really come full circle.
Yeah, it's interesting life for sure. You know, I grew up in Eastern Washington out there in Tri-Cities. And I grew up in what I thought was a typical household. So, you know, went to Sunday school, played Little League. My parents then got divorced when I was 11 years old. And I had no idea what divorce was when they told me that. I had never heard of the concept before. And they got divorced and my parents split pretty quick. And my mom got together with a man that was very physically abusive, almost immediately. And so I remember, you know, being 11 years old, watching this kid, you know, watching this guy beat up on my mom. I would be outside of the house looking through the window and they're arguing and he'd be hitting her with a cordless phone. And, you know, the police would come and my mom would never press charges. I never understood that and never understood why she decided to stay with that guy. Oh, then she got pregnant and they decided to do the smart thing and move to Stevensville, Montana, which was a small town, population 1,200 people there.
Oh.
They rented 5 acres. And there was a house on that 5 acres. It was beautiful property, 2 ponds right behind the Bitterroot River, you know, really, really pretty area. But the problem was that house had 3 bedrooms. It was one for them, one for my brother, who was just a couple months old at the time, and one for my sister, who was 4 years younger than me. And they said, Erik, you gotta live in the garage. I literally had half of the garage that was quote unquote my bedroom. I had a black tarp at the end of my bed that separated my bedroom from the truck that pulled in. And my half of the garage had a fireplace. So it would keep me warm semi through the most of the night, I guess, when it would get down to negative degrees in Montana in the winters. So I remember there was a lot of cold nights for sure. And, you know, one night I was 13 years old. I was brushing my teeth. Wasn't anything different than any other night, but they came home arguing. And as I was brushing my teeth, I felt, in my personal opinion, I felt God say, man, you got to turn around and see what's going on. And the way the house was set up was, behind me was the kitchen to the pantry to the garage where I lived. And in that pantry hallway there to get to my bedroom door, he was on top of my mom. And it was just boom, 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 one shot after another, just punch her in the face. And I'm like, man, I got to get this guy off. And so I snuck up behind him and I grabbed a cast iron pan and, you know, the heavy duty ones you take with you camping. And I played Little League. I got a pretty good swing and I swung as hard as I could. And I split the back of his head open. And
I'm not laughing because of that. I'm just thinking that you thought you had a good swing.
Totally, right? Yeah. You know, 13 years old, run up on this guy.
What else do you know, right? So
yeah. So I mean, I swung it as hard as I could, split his head open. He turned around and he's like, what the? And as he turned around, I swung again and I split his forehead open. And I had swung so hard that second time, I'd actually fallen over. He did not get knocked out because he was so drunk. And I remember him standing over me yelling and screaming. And my mom jumps up, lands like 6 punches in a row, blood splats on the wall. Cops show up, take him to jail for the night. My mom doesn't press charges. And I was kicked out of the house at that point. So I had 3 months left of my freshman year of high school. So I just bounced around from friends' houses and living on floors.
Why do you think she stuck around for that, Erik? Why did she want to live like that?
Yeah, it's weird to me that anybody would do that. I didn't understand it. I don't know if it was fear or I didn't understand. And it's still to this day, I have no idea. After I got kicked out, that led me down this path of destruction for the next 10 years of my life. And, it was pretty insane for the next 10 years. And, at that point, after my freshman year of high school, I moved back to live with my dad in Washington State, and he rented a house for him and I, and he would put $20 in the cup for my lunch money for the week, Hunger Man meals in the freezer, and cereal and milk in the house. And then he'd go stay with his girlfriend. So I would maybe see him a couple times a month in passing, but it was basically no adult supervision, no accountability. He got me a bus pass so I could get to school because I didn't have my license at the time. And so I was getting stoned before school. I was getting stoned during lunch. I was getting stoned after school. And I did that all through high school. And when I was a senior in high school, I actually got arrested for having a bong, which is now legal in the state of Washington. But in 1998, it was not. And I had to go to jail, black and white chain gang outfit on, bright orange slippers, still being a senior in high school. I literally wrote a note to my dad. Hey, I'm staying at Danny's house. I'll see you tomorrow. Because I knew I was only going to be gone for 24 hours. And I knew that he wouldn't call. And so I did. I went to jail and got out the next day and told him like 10 years later that I had actually been arrested at the time. But I was on probation for a year where I could not, smoke any pot. And so what that did was enhance my drinking. So I just started drinking. I was taking acid and mushrooms, and even to the point going to the store and buying a bottle of Robitussin DM cough syrup because it had morphine in it and it would make me hallucinate. And it cost half of the cost of acid. So, I mean, really into drugs and heavy drinking at that time. And 2 weeks after I graduated high school, I woke up to a note on my mirror that said, you can't comply with house rules. You have 48 hours to get out. And so at that point, I was basically homeless between ages of basically homeless again. Yeah. So between ages of 18 and 21, I moved 21 times, living on couches of friends, of second cousins for a week here, a week there, 2 days there. I had $100 in my pocket, and I moved to Seattle, Washington to get into the music business. I don't know how to play anything. I was just like, I just want to get in the music business. I love music. So I want to figure out how to get there. And so I basically, lived off of credit cards. I got my first credit card at Sears, and I got a video camera so I could record my buddies playing on skateboarding. And then I was like, dude, I can get this for free. I go get another credit card. And it just, by the time I'm 21, I'm $28,000 in debt and have to file bankruptcy.
It doesn't take long.
Right. Yeah. And so it took me a couple years when I got into Seattle, but I finally did land that job with Universal Records, which was, I was just a mailroom guy. I was working at a CD store, and one guy walked in that was a rep for Universal Records. And I jokingly said, hey man, how do I get your job? And he goes, oh, you got to be an intern. You got to be in college and stuff. And so I went down to the local community college, and I said, how much does it cost for me to, go through this internship program you guys have? And they're like, oh, $300. So I pay $300. I get my receipt, and I go to Universal, and I say, look, I'm an intern. Never went to a single class. And I said, look, I'm an intern. They said, okay, perfect. You can be an intern for us. So for 6 months, I just showed up every day at Universal, just stuffing posters. I never got paid for it. And then after 6 months, I said, all right, well, this guy's committed. We'll start hiring you. So they hired me on as the mailroom coordinator. I was tracking sales and setting meet and greets. Problem was, while I was at Universal and the year prior, I was managing a band. So I had this 2-year span where I went to about 175 concerts. And I had open tabs at every single one of those concerts. So I was drinking very heavily, living a rock star lifestyle without being a rock star. I don't know how to play any instruments. And that was a crazy time. I mean, I don't regret any of the things that I went through, because I think it made me the person that I am today. But it was a crazy rock star lifestyle for 2 years for sure for me.
But you obviously met some perfect people along the way that changed you, right? To control you, or to give you that guidance to know right from wrong, I guess you could say, somewhere around there.
Sort of. Yeah. I mean, so I remember there was a concert that I was at in downtown Seattle. I was in my early 20s, and there was a music rep from another record label that was probably in her early 30s. But I remember this moment so clear, looking at her going, I do not want to be her age, going to concerts 5 nights a week and being away from her family. And it was a couple of weeks after that, I got laid off my 1-year anniversary from Universal because of Napster. People didn't realize that hurt the music industry. It actually killed the music industry very much so at that time. And half our office got laid off, and I was bottom of the poll. So I got laid off. And I went into a deep depression. I was working at Starbucks at night, and I would get off work and go to the store, grab a 6-pack of beer, go to my ghetto apartment, which was across the street from where Jimi Hendrix was buried there in Renton, Washington. And I would drink myself to sleep every night. And one night while I was working at Starbucks, this girl walked in and doesn't drink coffee. And she said, "Hey, we've got this cool college age event at our church. Would you be interested in going?" Well, I was depressed. I had no friends, and she was really good looking. Absolutely. Yep, I'll go. Tell me when,
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I was like, I'm in, you tell me. And so I got down there.
Could it be, right?
Right. And so I got down there, and it was like this weird thing where I believe God was planting seeds. There was all these guys that I knew from high school. Like, man, I haven't seen you in 6 years. I haven't seen you in 5 years, man. What's going on? And it was at this youth event. So I was just helping them set up and tear down. And, so I got there and did that. And about a month later, it was Easter 2004. I was managing a band. We went and played a concert the night before Easter. And I woke up Easter morning, 2004, my buddy's basement, surrounded by probably 15 buddies and all still sleeping. I woke up at 5 o'clock, and I felt in that moment, God just telling me, man, you're going down this path that's going to end your life very, very quickly if you don't start making some changes. And I quit cold turkey, drugs, drinking, cigarettes right there. And I gave my life to Christ in my buddy's basement. And I called that girl up, and I got her voicemail. I said, "Hey, thank you for inviting me to that church event. Happy Easter. Maybe I'll see you at the store." And a month later, we were dating, and now she's my wife of 17 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. We were actually both born at exactly the same minute, 1:41 p.m. on our birth certificates. Different days, different years, but the exact same minute.
Wow.
Yeah.
It sounds like to me, though, even though, a lot of people could be homeless, and there are stories about somebody bringing a homeless out of their environment and what they can become. But with your story, it sounds like the universe really kept planting seeds to you, and you flew into it. What you learned in that music industry was probably really, really helpful for you in so many ways, as well as problems, right?
It definitely was. And I love the connections that I had, but I got to see the perspective of, if my life continues down this path, whether I have this relationship with Christ or not. I remember that moment going, I love the music industry, and I still do to this day. I love going to live concerts, but I wouldn't want to be in that 5-6 nights a week like I saw at the time,
Right. I wonder why you thought that. What, there must have been something that I don't want this lifestyle.
Yeah, I think it was
something deep inside of you.
I agree. I think that God has always watched over me, and I truly believe that, because I grew up going to church. I think my grandma, who's still alive today, she's 87. She's like 4'9", and probably the most amazing person in my life. I spent so much time with her, and since the day I was born, and even to this day, she tells me that she prayed for me since day one, and I believe truly that her prayer kind of guided me through this life and got me to where I'm at today. And maybe it was her prayer that put that thought in my mind at that concert that one night. I don't know, but I remember that so clearly that it was like, you know what? I do want a family. I do want to have a life outside of just going to a concert every night, because and so I think that was what started it. And I decided to make a change, and here we are today.
Because that lifestyle is wonderful for musicians.
Sure.
But it can be painfully wrong for many.
Yes.
Because sex, drugs, and rock and roll just doesn't mix well.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It causes other issues, of course. Look at Britney Spears, and all the young people that were affected by that lifestyle early on in their lives.
So much.
How it changed them, good and bad.
Yeah.
Not very many basically got out of that lifestyle alive, really.
Yeah, I agree.
And healthy and still here to tell the story. It must be very fast moving, very fast lifestyle.
It is. Yeah. And, before I worked at Universal, my buddy was the manager of the Gorge, which I'm sure you've heard of there, the Gorge Amphitheater out there in Washington State. And so that full summer before I worked at Universal, I had backstage passes, I had open passes, free concert, anytime I wanted to go down there. And again, open tab. So that was
Yeah.
part of this, party rock, like a rock star, personality. I think there's musicians that can make it through that, but it's very, very tough.
Very tough. So, I mean, you saw your mom's boyfriend with alcohol issues.
Yeah.
You didn't think it would happen to you if you kept on doing what he was doing?
I never thought of it. Never thought about that. All I did was, hey, you know what? And subconsciously looking back now, I was numbing the pain that I was in. I was ashamed and I was embarrassed of all that crap that I'd been through and witnessed, and embarrassed of my family or my mom, not pressing charges. And I hated to tell that story.
Yeah.
And only a few people knew that story up until about 2 years ago when I decided to go, publicly release my story. I'm 41 now. I didn't tell my story till I was 39.
Wow. Yeah, because you can't understand it, of course,
Right.
because when you've been through something, you're thinking, well, was it like that? Was it just me?
Right.
Right. So yeah, it takes a while. So you got through the bankruptcy, you got out of jail, you battled those addictions, which you turned around.
Mm-hmm.
You never went back.
Nope.
To after switching that switch.
Yep. Correct.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And that's tough all on its own. So you broke the chains of divorce. Is your mom still around now then?
Yeah, both my parents are still alive. I'm not close with either of my parents. We moved to Idaho because we didn't want people just knocking on our door randomly saying, "Hey, surprise, we're here." Right. So, my dad lives in Washington State. My mom and my sister live in Texas. And then my brother, who was from my mom and her abusive boyfriend, I don't even know how old he is. He's probably 26 now. And I think he lives out in the Seattle area still.
So is your mom and him still together?
No.
With the abusive? Yeah. She ended that?
She ended that a couple years after that, but and she ended up getting together with another guy who was an alcoholic, which, if you look at historically, I think women, at least in my mom's situation, jumped to another alcoholic situation, after that. And she was okay with that. And they were together for a while. And then, tragically, I think he ended up passing away, and now she's living out in Texas with another man. I've never met him, but my understanding is he's a nice guy.
Oh, thank goodness.
Right. Yeah.
Finally
Right?
break that chain for her.
Sure.
She deserves a real life too. And so you were sober, you were now you're married, and what from the music industry that you enjoyed so much? You really did. You have a passion of it, I'm sure, inside you.
It. Yeah. And my dad was a big music guy. So, I remember being at my grandma's house, the house that my dad grew up in, as a young boy. And my grandma would be watching me, but I'd be downstairs putting Elvis in the 8-track player. And I grew up listening to Elvis. So Elvis still to this day is probably one of my favorite artists. But yeah, I mean, ever since I was as far as back as I can remember, I've always loved music, and mostly rock and roll. And, my dad took me to my first concert was Richard Marx, and my 13th birthday, he took me to see Rod Stewart. So I've seen some really cool people. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure you must have saw Supertramp in there somewhere.
I have not seen Supertramp, but they would be a great live show for sure.
So what made you go into MMA fighting, that industry, that world itself, from music to that? It's kind of cool.
Totally. Yeah, it's a great question, because I grew up, my dad would get Mike Tyson fights on pay-per-view and boxing fights on pay-per-view. So I always watched that. But my dad would also rent ninja movies that they spoke no English. We would just put it in and watch it. And through all these ninja fight scenes as a kid, I remember watching them, and, I didn't understand what they were saying, but I love the action part of it. My dad would take me to local regional wrestling matches. So way back in the early day, got to see Dusty Rhodes and Jake the Snake before they got big, like all these regional wrestling shows. And then I ended up, they did take me to probably 5 or 6 WWF events as a kid too. So always was a combat sports fan. I remember being, first grade, me and my cousin in Prosser, Washington would walk like a mile to the store and we'd go get on VHS, UFC 1 and 2. And we'd watch that as kids in like 1st and 2nd grade. And so just always this big fan. And then in 2012, I'm sitting around the house. I'm like, man, I really want to get into MMA, apparel side of things. Tap Out was huge at the time. So I talked to my wife. She came up with the name Top Rated MMA. And then we said, how do we make ourselves different? We launched as a 100% American-made MMA apparel company. There might have been one other company that was doing that at the time. And then we wanted to be able to give back. So we reached out to Brian Stan's organization. Brian Stan, who used to fight in the UFC, started an organization called Hire Heroes USA, which helps veterans and their families transition into the workplace. Sorry, my camera just flipped off there for a second. But they help transition veterans and their families back into the workplace for free. And so we give back 25% of all the money that I generate through affiliate links on my website. I give back to that organization. So just always been a fan. So Top Rated MMA started as a apparel company. And then in 2015, I got bored with it. I literally put an ad in Craigslist and said, who wants to buy this company? And one guy called me up and wanted to offer me $1,000 or $3,000 or something like that. But I realized in that call that I wasn't ready to quit. And so I spent the next year just kind of barely getting by with the company, and then launched in 2017 as the Top Rated MMA show. And now we are 238 episodes into this thing and 100 episodes on my other podcast, and humbly considered the #1 MMA podcast out here in the Northwest.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, that's, and so you have the apparel, obviously, still then you have the whole works.
Yeah, much different. I do it all myself now. So I made a lot of business mistakes, bought inventory like crazy, and, ended up donating a bunch. But yeah, I do my own onesie twosies now. Yeah,
well, that you have to find what works. And I mean, the printing industry itself for clothing has changed so much throughout the years, in the last 5 years especially.
Totally.
So everybody in the printing industry have had to change that world of whatever that looks like. What kind of people have you had on your show?
So I talk with a lot of up and coming amateur fighters and early pro fighters, because I like to get these guys that are, what's their mindset? Like my initial quest, I guess, when I started the podcast was, why do you want to get in a cage and get punched in the face? And that was my question to all of them when I started, and really I've heard everything from, I did karate and wrestling and transitioned to MMA, to I have a federal offense and I can't get a real job, but I can go fight somebody and get food on my table for my kids. And so I love those stories of hearing people why they want to do that. So I have anyone from up and coming amateurs, early pros. I've been able to speak with Ken Shamrock twice. A lot of the guys that are in the UFC today have been on my show, both on the Ultimate Fighter right now, Brady Heinstein, I forget now, and his opponent, they're fighting next week. They were both on my show. And so, both of those guys, Josh Rittenhouse is his name. But yeah, both those guys have been on my show. They're both from here, Spokane area. And so it's been cool to see these early fighters then now get it into the big show. And so I love talking with early up and coming fighters, and I talk with fighters all over the world. It's been fun.
And they all have their stories too, right?
Yeah. They all have their stories. So I love to ask them, hey, where did you grow up and what was childhood like for you? And a lot of times I hear that, they had good childhoods. And then I hear some that are like, man, I had a horrible childhood. My, parents got divorced and they were addicted to drugs and I got my way out of it. And now I'm changing my mindset of how to do that and how to provide for my own family. And so I love those stories. I love to, talk about like real fighters, real stories is kind of what I talk about. And, over to the entrepreneurship podcast, the same thing. I ask the entrepreneurs, like, why do you want to get punched in the face? Hopefully not physically, but as an entrepreneur, we get punched in the face all the time with no's, rejections, and failures. And how do we get through that? And so that's what my entrepreneurship side of stuff talks about.
Kind of the same thing as being in the cage, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I have a very special quote that I say in most of my podcasts, and just talking about your backup plan. Mm-hmm. And do you know what Mike Tyson's quote is, by the way?
Everybody feels tough until you get punched in the face, or something like that. Right?
Something like that.
I don't think I got that quote correctly, but I think it's something very similar like that. Everyone's tough until you get to the face.
Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yes.
By Mike Tyson.
Yeah, absolutely.
And isn't that the truth?
So much so.
Because we, with your backup plan, I do talk to some people and say, I have a will and I have some life insurance and I have my house insurance and I have my medical, I have a plan. And I say, you don't know you don't have a plan until you get punched in the face.
Yes.
And then you realize that what I had wasn't what I wanted in the first place.
Yep.
Or that I didn't understand what I had in the first place.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what we're all about, is me trying to help people understand what they have and what they need, because they may not understand what they need. Just like in MMA fighting, if you don't know that you have to fight a certain way and hold up your fists in front of yourself, you're going to get knocked out.
Yes.
It won't take long
Right.
before somebody punches you.
Yeah.
In the wrong place.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Right? So, what kind of fun stories do you think you've come across that would be?
I mean, I always revert back to Ken Shamrock's story, because, that guy, he's done, like, he got adopted as a very young kid, but he's always been a fighter, right? Like, having him on my show and hearing his story of like having to fight kids at the schoolyard that were like, 3-4 grades older than him, and getting stabbed when he was a young kid too. I mean, just crazy story. And, I think he broke his back or his neck at one point, and then he was in the WWF and he was doing UFC, and he's, I think he was on Impact Wrestling for a while. Like, the way that he can presents himself is just this solid dude, and probably one of the nicest guys that I've ever got to talk to. And the fact that I got to talk to him twice was just mind blowing to me, because he's just such a great, genuine guy. And what he's got going on with Valor Bare Knuckle coming up soon later this year, it's his own promotion, Bare Knuckle Fighting. I think he's got a really solid plan for moving forward. He's just such a great guy. One day I talked to Ken Shamrock, and then an hour later I talked to Ed Milet, who's like my virtual mentor guy. And it was like the best day ever. I had so much information that was given to me that day. It was just unbelievable.
I find it so interesting, because when you speak to these types of people, and like yourself, there's so much business involved in that whole mentality of strength and focus and being aggressive enough to get your point across, and being aggressive enough in the ring to get what you want done.
Yeah.
Because it obviously isn't just go in there and be a brute. There's mental, technical things to it, just like hitting a ball in baseball.
Yep. Yeah.
It's so very interesting how business all comes out of this, and how it's formed you as people, just like hockey and baseball and that kind of training. So you're very lucky to have been involved in that kind of stuff. I'm sure musicians find it that way too, because they have to have that mentality as well.
Yeah. A lot of the overall theme, I think, when I talk with entrepreneurs and fighters, is one, they got to be dedicated and committed to what they're doing. What are they doing, what they're passionate about, and are they committed to it? And for me, I wake up at 4 a.m. 6 days a week to work on my goal, and it doesn't matter how late I stay up on Friday night, I'm still waking up at 4 a.m. on Saturday. And I might have to take a nap on Saturday, but I'm getting up at 4 a.m. no matter what, because I committed myself to do that. And so that allows me to get upstairs, to work on editing, to reach out to guests, to, put shows out, do voiceover work and practice speaking and things like that. And so I think overall, whether you're in the cage or you're an entrepreneur, you have to have that committed and dedication, and keep fighting for what you're passionate about.
Yeah. What do you think these fighters that you've come across, what do you think changed their lives, that this is what they want to do? Is there a component that's similar in all of them?
I think the overall theme that I've heard from MMA fighters come on the show is the reason they want to do that is because they want to push the limits of their body. And really it's like, how can we do this? Like, a lot of them, like, they love to get into the cage and just fight. And I've had guys say, if there's ever a fighter that tells you they're not scared to get in that cage, They're lying to you. Because backstage, I asked them, like, what are you feeling before you walk out to a cage, knowing you're going to get locked into a cage? There's a door behind you that's going to shut. There's another guy or girl across the cage from me that wants to physically hurt you, right? Like,
and win.
yeah. And, you know, what's the mindset going into that? And a lot of them are like, you know what? Once you've like trained, then, and that's what you're passionate about, the pain, they don't feel it during the fight. And they know 99% of the time, it's not anything personal. It's both of them doing their job. And you'll see it after the fight. I love the respect that fighters have for each other. After the fight, it's handshakes, it's hugs, man. Thank you for this. Thank you for that. They both grow stronger, win or lose. And I love that aspect of it, of the fighting. Yeah, watching them fight and getting knocked out and stuff like that is fun. But I love the mutual respect that comes out of fighting.
Do you think the mental strength is the winner?
A lot of times, yes. Yep. You have to be mentally stronger. And really whoever is mentally stronger in that fight is going to win that. Absolutely. And in a fight, anything can happen, right? But I think the more mental stronger person is going to win that fight.
And being involved in softball, like I was,
Sure.
as a softball mom, I realized that going up to bat wasn't all technical. I mean, it definitely is, knowing the sweet spot of the bat and how you stand and all that fun stuff.
Sure.
But it's the mental game.
Yes. I played baseball for 10 years and, you know, I coach Little League now, and it is a mental battle when you get up to bat. You know, yeah. I remember being in Montana and I was playing for the all-star team up there. And there was a kid that during the league, his name was Tono. And this guy being 13 years old, he was an Indian guy, and he threw like 80 miles an hour at 13 years old. I mean, very, very fast. One of the kids that I went to school with got hit in the head by him, and it actually like made him go half blind in one of his eyes. And I was like, when I get up to bat against this guy and the catcher's like, here comes a fastball, tell me exactly what's coming, I'm shaking. I'm like, I don't want to get beamed by this guy. And I only had to bat against him 2 times over 2 seasons, and he walked me both times. And then when I made All-Stars, we were teammates, and he's the nicest guy ever, but I would never want to get beamed by a hit by that guy, you know, by a pitch by that guy.
Well, the girls were funny too, because sometimes the pitchers would come up and they were twice, you know, their size.
Sure.
And everybody be like, oh God, I don't want to get up to bat with that. You know, I hope I get walked. And it's just such a wrong mentality to have when you go up to bat.
Absolutely.
Because it's all mind focus, and that who cares who's pitching to you? Who cares?
Yep.
It's just a ball coming at you from whatever arm.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So I guess it's like that in the cage. It's whatever somebody looks like or makes you feel intimidated, or I guess it's like that in the business world too. So there you go.
Yep, exactly.
So now that you're married and have kids, and have you ever thought of your backup plan? Because, you know, your backup plan isn't just for wills and life insurance. It's, you have a podcast. Yeah. What do you want to have happen to your podcast if something happened to you tomorrow?
You know, that's a great question. Because I don't think that I've planned for my podcast what happens when I'm gone. You know, I've always just looked at it like, I'm going to run this thing until I'm not passionate about it anymore. And, you know, if for some reason I wasn't here tomorrow, the podcast would go away, you know. And I hope that in the short time that I've been able to put out podcasts and put out shows and connect with people and share my story, that I'm impacting one person at least. You know, that's a personal goal of mine. If I wake up and I open my eyes, there's win number 1. I jump out of bed, make my bed. There's 2 wins in 15 seconds. It's going to be an awesome day. But then my next goal is to make sure that one person, virtually or in person, gets a smile on their face from me. And so if I can do that every single day, then that's the goal. But, you know, backup plans, I have the life insurance, but I didn't think about it till I was in my early 30s and I started to have kids. And I was like, what if I wasn't here?
Yeah. Damn.
Right?
I better get my stuff organized, right?
Yeah. So, you know, I started getting smarter financially after I filed bankruptcy, and I started, you know, realizing that I do need to have that financial backup plan for my wife and my kids if for some reason I'm not here, you know, and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, I think we're good to go on the life backup plan, but in regards to my show, I'm going to run it as far as I can. And if for some reason I'm not here one day, then it's probably because I'm not here one day.
But you see, just by me mentioning it to someone like you,
yeah,
there's going to be other listeners that I feel passionate about helping too,
Yeah.
that I want you to think. It's going to come up in your mind at some point and say, hey, Tina was right.
Yes.
I should be thinking about, who do I want to give this to? Who do I want to have continue it?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's your wife. Maybe it's somebody different. Maybe, what, even if I was incapable but still living, what would I want have happen
Right.
to that show?
Yep.
Because it's part of you. It's part of your life.
Yes.
Just like your life itself. And yeah, that's, see, I've made a change, hopefully with somebody listening today, to start thinking about their blog, their podcast, their website, their other stream of income that they have coming in. It could all disappear after they're gone.
Yes, totally.
So why not? Why not have a plan in place? So, that's awesome. Thank you so very much. Do you have any last notes for our listeners?
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity and the honor to be on your show. This was amazing. You're a great host, and people definitely need to be listening to your show.
Oh, thank you. And you're so sweet. I don't know what to say. Thank you so very much.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I hope somebody, this is why we do our shows. This is why we get up in the morning. And this is why I find great people like you to come on our shows, because you never know what's going to come around the corner. You don't know who's going to listen to something and say, hey, that's my life. Or maybe I should, that your mom's story or your story about being a kid in that instance. It's awesome. It's an awesome enlightenment for people. So thank you very much for sharing it and being open and having the courage to bring it to the forefront.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And so everybody, it's that time. I would love to talk to Erik some more. He's so great to listen to, and he has so many great people that he's also interviewed. So thank you so very, very much for our story today. It's been great. If you are, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because Erik's notes are all down my hand.
I love that hand.
It's always going the wrong way. And down here in the corner somewhere there, subscribe and like and click on the bell, because you have to ring my bell down there below. Don't forget. I hope we've inspired you and motivated you guys to Erik's story. It was fantastic, inspiring. He's such a great, cool guy. And remember, nobody's Superman in this world. Everybody has a story, so expect the unexpected. And if you are listening to the show right now and you have someone in your mind that you would like to reach out to and tell them how much you love and care about them, please pick up that phone, send them a text, call them on FaceTime, Zoom, Skype, you name it. We've got all the technical stuff now. Do it, because you don't know what tomorrow may bring. I hope that you can also start thinking about your unique plan, and I hope it's giving you some inspiration and motivation to what Erik has told you about life and all the things that's happened to him. And I thank you for sharing your time with us and watching. And I love each and every one of you. And I always end in Carol Burnett. I think you still know who Carol Burnett is, right, Erik?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Totally. Yeah.
Carol Burnett's such a beautiful, beautiful comedian in this world. And I love her so dearly. I'm so glad we had this time together just to have a laugh or sing a song. Seems we just get started. And before you know it, comes a time we have to say so long. So long, everybody. It was great having you on board with our show today. Thank you. Click on that bell, like, share, and follow. Thank you, Erik, for coming on.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much. Bye for now. Stay safe.